Okay, we'll start with this. Well, Melissa Oddessa posted this via her Twitter account. It reads, "Merry fucking Christmas Eve from this free agent. I'm back in the boxing game, bitches. Avila, Roman, you can't hold on to those titles forever. Hashtag hunting season resumes." That's right. Melissa Oddessa, Ring IQ's 2020 Prospect of the Year, had a not-so-eventful 2021. She signed with a new promoter, Signature Punch, and not long after, she began to experience issues, thus she wasn't as active this year as she would have liked to have been. But she is now a free agent. That deal has reached its term limit, and she has reshifted her focus, set her sights on the WBC Bantamweight champion of Mexico, Yulihan Luna Avila, and Argentina's IBF champion, Maria Cecilia Roman. Maria, who Melissa Oddessa beat earlier this year in what was a non-title fight. I reiterate, it was a non-title fight.
Fought just above the bantamweight limit.
Thus, the IBF title wasn't on the line in that fight. Melissa Oddessa sports a professional record of 5 wins, no losses, no draws. She was in action 2 times, at least 2 times this year, so the year wasn't a complete wash. Though when a fighter only has something like 5 professional fights, you want to get them out there as much as possible. Say 3, maybe even 4 fights in 1 calendar year. Melissa, she only got to fight twice this year. That was due to those promotional issues I talked about earlier.
She says she's a free agent now.
Gone are the shackles that held her back in 2021, though her being a free agent, well,
I don't think she gets a Maria Cecilia Roman rematch.
not without a major promoter behind her to incentivize an offer to Maria Cecilia Roman to return to the United States and put that blue belt, put that IBF title on the line in what would be a sequel to their initial meeting earlier this year. I can't see a Maria Cecilia Roman rematch happening devoid of some kind of a promoter backing Melissa Oddessa and financing the fight.
And Maria's probably going to want more money this time.
More money than whatever she was paid the first time out. The first time out, she lost the fight, and she knows that. The first time out, her IBF title, it wasn't on the line. If you want to get her back here stateside to do a sequel, she's probably going to want more scratch. She's probably going to want more cash. So I see an issue there.
That, and I think Matchroom's going to give her a call.
My previous video, we talked about how the blonde bomber of Australia, Ebony Bridges, states that they're going to try to get her a title fight sometime next year. And I happen to think that world title fight, that opportunity, will come by way of Maria Cecilia Roman.
That being said, I don't see a rematch happening for Melissa.
Yulihan Luna of Mexico, that is a possibility. Yulihan Luna's 2021 wasn't much more eventful than Melissa's was, though I expected better. I expected late last year, when Yulihan Luna upset the apple cart for the then long-reigning champion, Bobby Juarez, also of Mexico, I expected that the following year would be much bigger and much better for the newly crowned champion. But as it stands, all Yulihan Luna's done this year is fight 2 girls with upside-down records. I have expected to see a rematch between them, a rematch between Yulihan Luna and Bobby Juarez, but that didn't happen. Bobby Juarez instead ended up fighting Jackie Nava at Super Bantamweight in what was a bigger fight than her fight with Yulihan Luna.
And she lost that fight.
Lost it in one-sided fashion. Better still, Yulihan Luna, she didn't have that rematch with Barbie, and she's kept busy with pedestrian-level competition.
You know, she did this year was fight 2 girls with upside-down records.
And for fighting the kind of girls that she has been fighting, she might as well fight a Melissa Oddessa, who's a cut above the girls that she has been fighting. I don't see why something can't happen between them.
No guarantees that it does.
But that's who Melissa is eyeing. She's eyeing this division's WBC champion, Yulihan Luna. So, I don't know, maybe in the year of 2022, Melissa won't give her much of a choice. Maybe she'll become her mandatory challenger or something along those lines. It's good news that Melissa Oddessa Parker...
It's good to see she's a free agent now.
It's good that that situation between her and Signature Punch has now come to an end and she's free to move on. It's good news, but there's still more work needs doing. And a fighter like Yulihan Luna, a champion I should say, gonna be hard to corner.
Melissa's the bantamweight division's best kept secret.
Well, she might only have a handful of fights. Handful of fights so like an Ebony Bridges, like a Shannon Courtenay, but she comes from a deeper amateur background than they do. And when you see her in action, you realize that...
Quality operator.
That's why she was able to go the distance with Maria Cecilia Roman earlier this year.
Not every girl with only 3 professional fights can go in there and swap punches with Maria Cecilia Roman.
But Melissa can, because she's the real fucking deal. In other news, on the heels of his latest loss to Joseph Parker, some of you might have heard Chisora on critics calling for his retirement. Go fuck yourselves. Don't watch my next fight. This is what I'm going to say to all those people writing all that shit. Go fuck yourselves. Derek Chisora said in an interview with IFL TV, telling me to retire. Nah, if you don't want to watch me, don't. I don't care. I know those who love me will come out and watch. For those who want to feel sorry for me, don't feel sorry for me. Be happy for me. I'm living my best life right now. Do not feel sorry for me. So when I announce my next fight, tell them not to buy tickets, whoever said that. Don't watch me fight next time, Chisora said. That is it. Don't bother tuning in or anything like that. Go away. We don't need your negative vibes here, mate. That's the problem with us in Britain, Chisora continued. So in the Premier League, how many teams we got? 20. And 3 of them are probably the best teams out there. So the rest shouldn't bother playing for it? Because they aren't going to win, are they? Blackburn, Tottenham, Everton. The rest of the football teams shouldn't play for the Premier League anymore because they aren't going to win. Is that it? The punishment that Chisora has taken over the years cannot be denied. Chisora insisted that he would not be fighting in his 40s, but refused to give himself a firm cutoff date. I'm not fighting into my 40s, Chisora said. I'm still good in my 30s, so I'll do it. Everyone wants to know, when is he gonna stop? I don't know. Derek Chisora sports a professional record of 32 wins, 12 losses, and in those 12 losses, he's been stopped 3 times.
But Derek has mostly only lost to elite level guys.
That's the thing. You need to compete at a certain level in order to make it past Derek Chisora, and it seems that most of the time, the guys that beat him, they were elite level guys at that time, or on their way to becoming elite level fighters.
They might have been on their way to become an elite level guy.
Not just any unbeaten up-and-comer with some potential makes it past Derek Chisora. I want to make that clear. You do need to compete at a certain level to be able to deal with this guy, to be able to beat this guy, even here and now, at 37 years old, with 12 losses.
Eddie Hearn likes Derek's chances against Deontay Wilder.
Eddie Hearn, who says, if it goes past 4 rounds, Derek Chisora can beat Deontay Wilder. As long as the fight is extending beyond the first 4 rounds, Hearn would back Chisora to beat Deontay Wilder. All Chisora's losses have come at elite level, and Wilder is elite level. Listen, Chisora can beat Wilder. If he hits him with a big shot, I tell you what, if that fight goes past 4 rounds, Chisora wins that fight. But he's got to get past 4 rounds, and that's going to be really dangerous against someone who punches as hard as Wilder, Hearn said, according to The Sun.
You know, Derek Chisora is only 1 year older than Deontay Wilder.
Derek's 37 and Deontay's 36. Yet it's Deontay Wilder who's hinting at retirement, whereas Derek Chisora won't give you a conclusive answer, not even after 12 professional losses.
Derek doesn't seem to want to retire, whereas Deontay's hinting at it.
It's the strangest thing. Derek Chisora is coming off of his 3rd consecutive loss, this rematch with Joseph Parker. He lost one to Usyk, then he lost a controversial decision to Joseph Parker after that. He lost more definitively recently in their second outing, in their rematch. And in spite of all of this, I still feel like Derek has more left in the tank than Deontay Wilder does, in spite of Wilder having only really lost 2 times. 2 times on paper, both times to the same guy.
Hey, Wilder's the one hinting at retirement, whereas
Derek's telling anybody pestering him with that retirement talk to go fuck themselves because he doesn't want to retire just yet. So what does that tell you? I look at these 2 guys and I'll tell you something.
What?
I look at these 2 guys and I think that Derek Chisora is a more...
I think mentally he's a lot more centered than Deontay Wilder.
I know that's going to sound strange, but psychologically, I actually think Derek Chisora is a tougher guy, psychologically, than Deontay Wilder.
Wilder loses 2 fights to the same guy, and he's ready to call it a career.
Whereas Derek suffered his 2nd professional loss. That was at the hands of Robert Helenius.
10 years.
All the way back there in 2011. And he stuck around after all these years. I mean, I see in Derek Chisora a fortitude that I don't see in Deontay Wilder. It shouldn't seem far-fetched at all to anyone that Derek Chisora might actually be a live dog against Deontay Wilder, even here today, because look at the mental state of Deontay Wilder, and realize that this is a guy who He's been around as long as Derek Chisora, yet somehow he never managed to bump into him or many of the guys that Derek Chisora has fought. You see, the way I look at it, Derek's got 12 losses in his resume, he does. But it's because he was fighting the kind of guys that Wilder wasn't fighting.
Tyson Fury, Robert Helenius, Vitaly Klitschko, David Haye, Kubrat Pulev, Dillian White.
A lot of people don't think of Derek as being one of Deontay Wilder's contemporaries. Perception, it can be a bitch. The truth is, Derek Chisora debuted as a professional in 2007. Deontay Wilder debuted as a professional a year later in 2008. And you look at the kind of people that Derek Chisora was fighting the first 7 years of his professional career, the people that gave him losses, you look at those people, and then you look over at Wilder's first 7 years as a professional.
Derek Chisora's fighting Tyson Fury, Robert Helenius, Vitaly Klitschko.
And Wilder was fighting who? Unheralded journeyman that couldn't win an area title?
Derek Chisora has 12 losses because he's never shied away from fighting the best.
He has never shied away from a tough fight. Now, if you put Deontay Wilder in Derek Chisora's shoes and you put that same Deontay Wilder up against Vitaly Klitschko, up against Tyson Fury, way back when,
He don't make it to the WBC title.
I'm telling you he don't. There's a reason Deontay Wilder's resume looks the way that it looked the first 7 years of his professional career. If he had been fighting the kind of guys that Derek Chisora was fighting, he would have never became WBC champion.
The guy suffers 2 losses to the same guy and he's ready to call it a career.
Stop me when I tell a lie. He just suffered his second professional loss at the hands of Tyson Fury, and what's he doing now? He's hinting at retirement.
So if he would have suffered those 2 losses earlier in his career, would he still be here now?
I don't think so. And Eddie Hearn, he may be onto something.
Think about it.
You may bump into a lot of sentimental Americans who think they know the career of Deontay Wilder, yet they can't seem to account for the first 7 years of his professional career. Guys who really don't know that Derek Chisora was one of Deontay Wilder's contemporaries, yet he mysteriously never bumped into him. In September of 2010, Derek Chisora beat Sam Sexton by way of technical knockout. Later on that year, Deontay Wilder fought a journeyman.
In October of 2019, he fought Harold Skoniers.
Some of you out there might be familiar with that name, the name of Harold Skoniers. Harold Skoniers, who had Deontay Wilder in big trouble.
Fantasy Springs Casino in California.
Wilder's fans, the ones familiar with the Harold Skoniers fight, they like to act like this didn't happen, but you tell me.
You do it.
If Derek Chisora, 2010, would have fought Deontay Wilder back then.
The Derek Chisora that knocked out Sam Sexton, September.
If Deontay would have fought him the following month. I mean, let's just say that Derek, he don't fight Sam Sexton in 2010. Let's just say, hypothetically speaking, he fights Deontay Wilder instead. Swap out Harold Skoniers for Derek Chisora. Put him in the ring with Deontay Wilder in October of 2010.
You think Wilder would have won that fight? Because I don't.
No, I don't. Given what Deontay Wilder suffered at the hands of Harold Skoniers, what would have happened if Derek Chisora landed on Wilder the same way that Harold Skoniers landed on Wilder? Harold Skoniers was journeyman already.
Derek wasn't no journeyman. He was an unbeaten up-and-comer.
Hey, I'm just giving it to you straight. It's the only way I know how to give it to you. If you want to know what I think, and you're here, so I'll assume that you do. If the 2010 Derek Chisora would have locked horns with the 2010 version of Deontay Wilder, the 2010 version of Deontay Wilder, he don't make it to the WBC title years later. He don't go on to become a champion. I'll go a step further. I'll say that the Derek Chisora that fought Tyson Fury for the very first time in July of 2011, following year, if Deontay Wilder would have fought that version of Derek Chisora then, 2011,
The same applies.
Wilder don't make it to the WBC title. And the only reason that Wilder ended up making it to the WBC title is because they weren't matching him against guys like Derek Chisora and Vitaly Klitschko and Robert Helenius. No, he avoided all of that while all of those guys were busy fighting each other.
Look at his resume. It speaks for itself.
You think about what Eddie Hearn said. If Derek Chisora can weather the storm for the first 4 rounds and not get clipped, which is a genuine possibility that no one should dismiss, if he can make it past the first 4, it can be rough seas indeed, for Deontay Wilder. That's not far-fetched at all to me. It's not far-fetched from where I'm sitting, and no, I don't think that Eddie's just backing the Brit.
Derek Chisora is a mid-range to inside pressure fighter.
Mid-range to inside, where Deontay Wilder just so happens to be very vulnerable. He can generate a lot of power when he shoots straight shots.
The straight right hand.
And it really is just the straight right hand. That's why Deontay Wilder is often categorized as being a one-handed fighter. I think about a fight like that, whether we're talking about a fight like that yesterday or even here today. Deontay Wilder's never been a prolific puncher, you know. He's not the kind of guy that goes in there and systematically breaks you down. He is the kind of guy that loses a couple of rounds and then lands a Hail Mary right hand.
His power bails him out.
Can be behind on the cards, but that's what happens. Though he's never been a prolific puncher. He's never been a busy bee, as busy a bee as Derek Chisora. Derek's a mid-range to inside pressure guy. Guy who's gonna barrel forward, bobbing, weaving, slipping, hooking, looking to crowd you, rough you up on the inside. It's rough seas. I think it would have been rough seas for Deontay Wilder had he fought this guy a decade ago. I do. I'll go as far as saying that I think Derek could have beat him 2010, 2011. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Styles make fights. How many pressure fighters has Deontay Wilder actually fought? How many guys who could really punch? I mean, really think about this. Derek Chisora is a mid-range to inside pressure guy that likes to let the fists fly. He's a very busy bee.
I know there's a chance that Wilder could clip him on the way in.
And I don't dismiss that, but Deontay Wilder not actually being much of a jabber, not having the most educated jab.
While Derek Chisora's barreling forward, bobbing and weaving.
I'm telling you, in a situation like that, I could see Derek Chisora landing a couple of really big overhand rights.
Wilder don't take the best punch.
They don't. That's why Harold Skonias dropped him. That's why Eric Molina stunned him.
Never thought Wilder takes the best punch.
And I've always been skeptical about his energy reserves. I've always been skeptical about his gas tank. Deontay Wilder isn't a prolific puncher, but any guy that goes in there and forces him to work more than he's accustomed to...
He's no defensive wizard either.
What we're talking about is a fundamentally flawed, one-handed fighter who don't like being crowded.
Never been very coordinated. That's why he was tripping over his own feet with Artur Spilka.
This fight 9 or 10 years ago is a fight that I think Derek Chisora would have won, and it's for this reason that Wilder didn't fight guys like Derek Chisora 9 or 10 years ago.
This fight here today is a different proposition.
Not that I think it's going to happen, because I don't. But I wouldn't count out a guy like Derek Chisora. Derek suffered losses, he suffered setbacks, but he's got the intestinal fortitude to pick himself back up every single time and get back out there, whereas Deontay suffered his first professional loss to Tyson Fury and spent a year
making excuses and playing a blame game
just to get the fucking shit beaten out of him again, and now he's contemplating retirement. It's not that Wilder can't clip him, that's a genuine possibility, but from where I'm sitting, so is the alternative.